Jack Morrison had always been good with his hands. The small workshop behind his house was his sanctuary, filled with half-finished inventions and the comfortable smell of motor oil and sawdust. He'd inherited the property from his grandfather, along with the peculiar habit of tinkering with things that shouldn't work but somehow did. It was while replacing a rotted floorboard that he found it, a metal hatch seamlessly integrated into the concrete foundation. The surface was smooth, almost mirror-like, with no visible hinges or handle, yet when Jack pressed his palm against it, the metal warmed under his touch and silently slid open, revealing a staircase that descended into blue-lit darkness. His girlfriend Daisy would have called him crazy for going down alone. She was the practical one in their relationship, the one who read warning labels and checked smoke detector batteries. But Daisy was visiting her sister in Portland, and Jack had never been able to resist a mystery. The stairs led to a corridor that stretched beyond the reach of his flashlight. The walls were lined with the same mirror metal as the hatch, and soft bioluminescent strips provided ambient lighting. As Jack walked deeper, he noticed symbols etched into the walls. Not quite hieroglyphics, not quite mathematics, but somehow familiar in a way that made his brain itch. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that shouldn't have been able to exist beneath his modest backyard. Banks of crystalline computers hummed with alien energy, their surfaces flickering with data streams in languages that predated human civilization. At the center of the room stood a pedestal supporting what appeared to be a sphere of liquid starlight. "Finally," a voice said behind him. "We were beginning to think your species would never find us." Jack spun around to face a figure that was almost human. Tall, elegant, with skin that seemed to shift between silver and blue depending on the angle of the light. Its eyes were ancient and kind, holding depths that spoke of eons spent watching over younger races. "I am Keeper HFY of the archivists," the being continued. "We have been waiting beneath your world for 3,000 of your years, maintaining the repository until humanity proved ready." "Ready for what?" Jack managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. "To join the greater community of minds," HFY replied, gesturing toward the crystalline computers. "Your species has reached a critical juncture. You stand at the threshold between planetary infancy and cosmic citizenship. But first you must prove that humanity possesses the one quality that separates true intelligence from mere cleverness." The archivist moved to one of the computers, its fingers dancing across surfaces that responded to touch like liquid mercury. Images filled the air around them, civilizations rising and falling across the galaxy, species that had reached for the stars only to destroy themselves in wars over resources, ideology, or simple fear of the different. "Many races achieve faster than light travel," HFY explained. "Many develop artificial intelligence, master genetic engineering, even learn to manipulate matter at the quantum level. But technical advancement without wisdom is simply elaborate suicide." "Then what makes the difference?" Jack asked. "Hope," the archivist said simply. "The ability to imagine tomorrow being better than today, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. It is humanity's defining characteristic, and it is vanishingly rare in the cosmos." HFY showed him species after species, beings of incredible intellect who had calculated the futility of existence and simply stopped. Races that had achieved immortality, only to discover that eternity without purpose was its own kind of death. Civilizations that had solved every problem except the fundamental question of why any of it mattered. "But humans," the archivist continued, "humans build gardens in war zones. You sing songs about better days while your cities burn. You name your children after concepts like hope, faith, and joy, as if the very act of speaking these words could make them real." Jack thought of Daisy, of the way she still left little notes in his lunch even after 5 years together, of his grandfather, who had continued inventing useless but wonderful gadgets well into his 90s, of humanity's countless small acts of defiance against an indifferent universe. "The repository contains the collected knowledge of 47 extinct civilizations," HFY said. "Technologies that could end hunger, disease, even aging itself. But knowledge without wisdom is merely sophisticated ignorance. We need teachers, not students, guardians who will ensure these gifts are used to build rather than destroy." "Why me?" Jack asked. "I'm just a mechanic with a workshop." "Because you came down here alone, knowing it might be dangerous, simply because you were curious about what lay beneath. Because your first thought upon seeing our technology was wonder, not greed." Because you represent what your species could become if it chooses hope over fear. The sphere of starlight pulsed, and suddenly Jack understood. The repository wasn't just a library, it was a test. Every species that found it faced the same choice. Take the knowledge and run, or accept the responsibility that came with it. If I say yes, Jack said slowly, I become something more than human. You become more human than ever, HFY corrected. You become what humanity aspires to be, a bridge between what is and what could be. Jack closed his eyes and thought of Daisy's laugh, of children he might never have, of the simple pleasure of fixing broken things. Then he thought of the stars waiting. When he opened his eyes, he was changed. Not physically. He still looked like Jack Morrison, small-town mechanic. But behind his eyes now lay the accumulated wisdom of ages, and in his heart burned the unquenchable flame that made humanity unique in all the cosmos. Hope. As he climbed the stairs back to his workshop, Jack began planning. There was work to do, a species to guide, and a universe of possibilities waiting to unfold. He had phone calls to make, starting with Daisy. After all, the future was too important to build alone.